It's a great entrance there with the bells ringing.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe it's a good omen.
Is this clay? It's gray, bluish.
The legend tells of flood tunnels on the island.
Malta just handed Rick and Alex Lagina the key to Oak Island's treasure, revealing a stunning Templar ritual site that mirrors strange structures on Oak Island itself. The team traveled a huge distance, chasing clues that suggested the Oak Island problem was tied to the famous Knights Templar. Could this incredible discovery in Malta mean the treasure is a sacred relic smuggled there by the Templars? Tune in, because this explosive Maltese connection is the key to finally solve all the questions. Mediterranean whispers and island echoes. The path to Malta was not a sudden decision. It grew from years of patient work on Oak Island, where strange and ancient objects had slowly come to light.
It's a curious thing. What the heck is it?
Yeah.
The discovery of a lead cross believed to be from the 14th century was one of the first really strong clues pointing towards a European connection, possibly involving religious or military orders from that time. Then there were the various stone structures like the strange paved area in the swamp and alignments of boulders that seemed out of place for early colonial settlers. Some experts who looked at these features suggested they could date back as far as the year 1200 AD, a time when the Knights Templar were still very powerful. These tantalizing pieces of evidence, unearthed from the soil of Oak Island, were like echoes from a distant past, urging Rick and his team to look beyond the shores of North America. Malta, with its rich history as a stronghold of the Knights of Malta, an order that inherited some Templar traditions, seemed like a logical place to search for more direct links. The team traveled with a mix of hope and careful expectation, knowing that any confirmation found so far from home could reshape their entire understanding of the Oak Island question. As they arrived in Gozo and then Valletta, the ancient capital of Malta, the very air seemed thick with history. The ringing of church bells as they began their inquiries felt to Rick like a positive sign, perhaps a hint that their long path would be rewarded with new understanding. Almost as soon as they began their work in Valletta, Rick and the team were led into a hidden world beneath the city, a network of underground tunnels. These passages were not just simple cellars, they were carefully built structures, created by the skilled hands of the Knights of Malta back in the 16th century. As they walked through these cool, stone-lined corridors, an immediate sense of familiarity struck them. Alex Lagina, who was part of the group exploring the tunnels, pointed out the specific type of clay visible in the tunnel walls, a grayish-bluish material. This observation was electrifying because the legends of Oak Island, passed down through generations of searchers, often described a complex system of flood tunnels designed to make any treasure recovery nearly impossible. Reports from early money pit digs mentioned encountering similar sticky blue clay at great depths. Could the builders of these Maltese tunnels and the creators of the Oak Island workings have used similar materials or techniques? An expert named Emiliano, who accompanied them, strengthened this thought when he remarked that he recognized a similar pattern in the way these tunnels were designed. This suggested that the engineering knowledge behind these 16th century Maltese constructions might share a common origin with the much older and more strange workings described on Oak Island. The idea that a specific style of tunnel building, perhaps even involving a particular type underscore of clay, chosen for its water-resistant properties, could span such a vast distance in different time periods was a profound one. It hinted at a tradition of hidden construction passed down through a knowledgeable group. Beyond the structural similarities of the tunnels, another piece of the problem began to fit. This concerned a small but significant artifact found a year before on Oak Island, a curious button adorned with a distinctive starburst design. At the time of its discovery, its origin was unknown, another solitary clue among many. However, during their time in Malta, through dedicated research and discussions with local experts, the team received information that helped them confirm a potential connection. It appeared that this particular starburst pattern was not random, but might indeed be linked to the Maltese order or symbols associated with groups connected to them. The process of confirming such a link would have involved comparing the Oak Island button's design to known Maltese insignia, historical illustrations, or artifacts preserved in Maltese collections. For a small, everyday object like a button to carry such a significant historical connection was remarkable. It was a tangible piece of evidence that could physically tie someone or something from Oak Island directly to this powerful Mediterranean order. These initial discoveries, the tunnel similarities and the button connection, deeply impressed Rick Lagina.
This is where things would fall. You know how Gary always says things fall to the lowest point, right?
He shared with his team that he found these links highly suggestive. In his careful way of speaking, this was a strong statement. He was becoming more convinced that the Knights of Malta, or perhaps an organization that grew out of them or worked alongside them, could have had a hand in the Oak Island problem. A wave of excitement was building within the team. There was a clear and urgent feeling, an imperative, as Rick put it, to pursue these Maltese leads with all their energy. This trip was quickly becoming more than just an exploration. It felt like they were on the cusp of a genuine breakthrough, one that could illuminate the shadowy origins of the Oak Island venture. The ancient stones and hidden passages of Malta were beginning to yield their answers, and each revelation seemed to tighten the invisible thread connecting this Mediterranean island to that small wooded island in the North Atlantic. But what other, perhaps even more direct symbols of this connection might still be waiting for them in the heart of Malta's oldest questions? Carved in stone, veiled in time. The quest for knowledge then led Rick and his companions to one of Malta's most somber and ancient locations, the island's oldest prison. Before they even passed through its imposing gates, their guide, Emiliano, who had shown them the tunnels, gestured towards a section of the stone wall near the entrance. He told them there was something there, something behind you, that he thought they might recognize from their Oak Island research. Turning to look, Rick, along with team members Scott and Doug, focused on the weathered stone. There, etched into the surface, was a symbol that made them stop in their tracks. A cross with a single dot carved into each of its 4 quadrants, the 4-dot cross. A ripple of recognition and excitement passed through the group.
Well, it certainly continues to remain of interest, right? So let's finish this little area.
Yeah.
This was not just a random carving, it was a potent symbol they had encountered many times in their investigation into the Knights Templar and related orders. Doug quickly recalled the commonly understood meaning of this particular cross. It was often used to indicate the presence or former presence of holy relics, sacred objects of great religious importance. The most electrifying part of this discovery was its direct link back home. This very same 4-dot cross was the key feature of the H+O stone, a famous and strange artifact from Oak Island. To find it here, carved into the walls of an ancient Maltese prison, was a stunning confirmation of a shared symbolic language. The story of the H+O stone was itself a significant chapter in the Oak Island saga. Discovered on the island's northern shore in the year 1921, the stone was only a fragment of what was once a much larger boulder. Earlier searchers, in their eagerness and misunderstanding, had used explosives on the boulder, believing it marked a treasure spot, and in doing so likely destroyed other valuable carvings or information. The piece that survived, bearing the H+O inscription alongside the 4-dot cross, had long confused researchers. In more recent years, as the current Oak Island team expanded their research into Europe, they began to find this identical 4-dot symbol in numerous locations historically linked to the Knights Templar. These sites spanned a vast geographical area from Portugal and Italy to Denmark and the Netherlands. This widespread use of the symbol suggested it was part underscore of a recognized system of marking for those within the Templar sphere of influence. Now, learning that it also carried the specific meaning of denoting holy relics cast its appearance on Oak Island in an entirely new light. Standing before the Maltese prison wall, Emiliano offered a thought-provoking suggestion. He wondered if this prison, in an earlier time before it was used for incarceration, might have served a different, more hidden purpose for the knightly order that built it. Perhaps it was a fortified place designed to safeguard or conceal items of immense value and sanctity. The idea that this symbol could serve as a marker for hidden holy artifacts found both on a remote Canadian island and within an ancient Mediterranean prison was a powerful one. It implied that whatever was hidden on Oak Island might be of a sacred rather than purely monetary nature. For Rick Lagina, this moment in front of the prison wall was one of profound significance. The four-dot cross, he stated with a quiet intensity, is on Oak Island. There's no getting around that. This was not a matter of speculation anymore. It was a hard fact, a tangible link etched in stone in two vastly separated parts of the world. He felt an overwhelming sense that this connection was incredibly important and demanded thorough follow-up. It suggested a deliberate act, a message left by people who understood the symbol's deep meaning and who were likely part of the same overarching organization or tradition. The ancient weathered stones of the Maltese prison seemed to whisper of forgotten things, and this particular carving felt like a direct communication from the past. If the four-dot cross truly signified the presence of holy relics, then the implications for the Oak Island treasure were immense.
And then pressed into a mold. So this would be in France when this was first developed.
Potentially elevating it from a pirate's hoard or a forgotten fortune to something of world-changing religious and historical importance. The team absorbed the impact of this discovery, their minds buzzing with new theories and questions. The Maltese path was proving to be far more revealing than they might have dared to hope. Their next destination was Medina, once the capital city of Malta. There, they were scheduled to meet with a researcher who promised even more insights into the island's nightly past and its potential links to their quest. What new layers of this centuries-old question would be peeled back in Medina? Forging the chain across the ocean. The pursuit of these historical threads brought Rick and the team to Medina, the ancient walled city that had served as Malta's capital when the Knights of Malta first took command of the island nation in the early 16th century. Within these venerable walls, steeped in an atmosphere of bygone power and intrigue, they were to meet Korjan Mol. Korjan, an author and dedicated researcher into these historical orders, had contacted the team, believing he possessed new information that could further illuminate the connections between the Knights of Malta, their predecessors the Knights Templar, and the enduring Oak Island question. The team gathered in anticipation, ready to absorb whatever Korjan had pieced together. Each new fact, each previously overlooked historical document or connection could be the key to understanding the grand overarching narrative that might finally explain the who, what, when, and why of the Oak Island question. The weight of centuries seemed to hang in the air of Medina, a fitting backdrop for revelations that could span continents and epochs. Korjan Mol began his detailed presentation by taking the team back to a dark and pivotal year in European history, 1307.
For 24 years, Viterbo was the center of the Christianity and the known world.
It was on Friday, the 13th of October of that year, that a dramatic and devastating blow was struck against one of the most powerful organizations of the Middle Ages, the Knights Templar. On that day, acting in concert, Pope Clement V and King Philip IV of France made the stunning decision to order the arrest of Templars throughout France and to dissolve their esteemed order. For nearly 2 centuries, the Knights Templar had been a dominant force, serving as elite warriors for the Catholic Church during the Crusades and also developing into a sophisticated international banking organization. The official charges leveled against them were those of heresy and other blasphemous practices. However, Korjan, aligning with the views of many modern historians, suggested that the true motivation behind this ruthless suppression was likely the desire of the King of France, who was heavily indebted to the Templars and perhaps even the Pope to seize the order's legendary wealth and priceless artifacts. Rumors had long swirled that the Templars, during their time in the Holy Land, had recovered treasures of immense religious and historical significance. These were said to include objects like the golden menorah from King Solomon's temple, the mystical Holy Grail, and even the sacred Ark of the Covenant. Faced with persecution, Korjan explained, it's believed that some Templars managed to escape the dragnets. And according to certain theories that resonated deeply with the Oak Island team, these fleeing Templars might have begun the arduous and secretive process of transporting their most precious treasures to secure hiding places, potentially including a remote island like Oak Island, perhaps starting this operation as early as the year 1200 AD, well before their official downfall. While many Templars were captured, tortured, and executed, their great treasure, if it was indeed moved, effectively vanished from historical record, creating one of history's most enticing lost treasure legends. Corjan then shifted the focus to a later period, bridging the gap between the medieval Templars and the era of North American colonization. He introduced a key figure, Isaac de Razilly. In the year 1632, de Razilly, who was not only a French naval captain, but also a Knight of Malta, led a significant expedition across the Atlantic. His royal commission was to establish and secure France's colony of Acadia, the territory that would later become known as Nova Scotia, the home of Oak Island. For his successful efforts in this endeavor, de Razilly was granted the prestigious title of Lieutenant General for New France. The crucial detail that Corjan highlighted for Rick and the team was the strategic location Isaac de Razilly chose for the colony's main headquarters, a place called Fort Point situated on the Le Havre River. This location was astonishingly close to Oak Island, a mere 15 miles to the south. The presence of a high-ranking Knight of Malta establishing a significant base of operations in such close proximity to Oak Island during the 17th century was a fact of profound importance. It provided a direct link for the Knights of Malta to the immediate geographic vicinity of the island at a plausible time for sophisticated works to have been undertaken or continued. Furthermore, Corjan drew attention to an intriguing family connection involving the name de Villiers. He mentioned a Gerard de Villiers, a prominent figure associated with the Knights Templar around the time of their suppression in 1307. Then he pointed to historical records showing individuals with the same de Villiers surname arriving and playing roles in the early settlement of Nova Scotia, in the very region where de Razilly was active. This suggested the possibility of a lineage, a family line perhaps entrusted with ancient things, or a long-term mission stretching from the Templars of medieval Europe to the early colonial efforts near Oak Island. Alex Lagina, listening to this part of the presentation, expressed that he found this de Villiers connection especially compelling, as it represented a human chain, individuals connected to these powerful orders active on both sides of the Atlantic over a span of centuries. Rick Lagina absorbed all of this new information with his characteristic, thoughtful demeanor. The connections Corjan Mol presented resonated deeply with his own long-held belief about the Oak Island question. Rick had often stated that he felt the story of Oak Island was multi-depositional.
And then throw in the date. That's pretty significant.
Meaning it was likely not the result of a single event or a single group, but rather a series of activities, perhaps by different but related groups, over many generations or even distinct historical periods. Corjan's research, with its links from the early Templars to the later Knights of Malta and their presence in Nova Scotia, provided strong connective tissue for this theory. It offered a plausible framework, a historical narrative that could account for the incredible engineering, the passage of hidden knowledge, and the long-term commitment required to create and maintain whatever was hidden on Oak Island. Rick conveyed his excitement about the expanding possibilities of what Oak Island truly represented. The information from Malta, he felt, gave them a much clearer path to follow. Armed with these profound insights from their Maltese expedition, Rick and the team felt an invigorated sense of purpose and a clear direction for their ongoing work. The path had provided not just isolated clues, but a coherent historical narrative that placed the Oak Island question within a grand sweep of European and North American history. Rick articulated his ultimate aspiration for the project, to finally reach a point where they could state with certainty, with periods at the end of the sentences, not question marks, exactly what transpired on that strange island. He acknowledged that if the complex and far-reaching story that Corjan Mol and their own Maltese discoveries suggested was indeed the truth behind Oak Island, it was a quite remarkable saga, one of enduring faith, incredible perseverance in the face of persecution, vast hidden treasures, and things kept safe across oceans and centuries. The Maltese connection had opened a new, promising chapter. The clues from Malta strongly suggested a deep historical connection to Oak Island, but the biggest question remained: how would this new understanding help them finally unlock the things buried deep within the island's reluctant soil? Tell us what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.